Hello, thank you for listening to A Glimpse of the Kingdom. I am David Pendergrass. I was so excited that my friend Eddie decided to do this podcast with me with no hesitation. I'm so excited that you get to hear so much of Eddie's story. Unlike most of my podcasts, if you're a normal podcast listener, I don't do most of the talking. That was deliberate. I couldn't help myself a few times. I mean, I wanted it to be a conversation, not just an interview, but I deliberately allowed Eddie to do most of the talking. That was on purpose for my own good and hopefully for my listeners' good as well. And I'm so glad that Eddie decided to do this. I hope you'll listen carefully. I decided not to edit this at all and to leave all the ums and uhs. I also decided not to put this in multiple parts, so it's going to be a little longer than a lot of podcasts might be. But nevertheless, I want you to hear the whole thing in full if you can hear it. God bless, and I pray this encourages you and challenges you. Eddie, thanks, man, for so much for doing this. I appreciate this. And for my podcast listeners, Eddie and I go way back. I was Eddie's way back. I taught at a college years ago, man. I don't remember how many years ago it was now. A long time ago.
Like 04, man.
04, golly.
04, 05, like somewhere in that range, yes.
So the time of this recording, that was 16 years ago. And I was teaching world religions at a place called Lone Star College, and I had taught that class many times. And one of the times there was a guy who's all dressed up, man, had a leather on scarf. He was all fly. He had his hat on. He's like, "Who is this cat?" And he came up, and his name was Eddie, and we immediately hit it off. And he was the only guy in the class who probably paid attention and laughed and whatever in a world religions class, and that was cool. And then a couple of years later, I guess it was, you started, and we kept on touch, I guess Facebook or something.
Yeah.
And then Eddie started dating a girl, a young lady. Before we knew it, he was getting married. And so we did some great premarital counseling. And I say great, that not because of me, but it was a good time.
No, I mean, you helped.
I helped.
You helped steer the ship, you know.
Well, that's good.
That was good stuff.
So anyway, I just so Eddie's certainly my brother in Christ, and he has a precious family and 2 kids now.
2 kids now.
Yeah, that's crazy.
EJ and Kennedy.
Man, what's their names?
EJ and Kennedy.
That's right. And anyway, so I don't know if it matters or not, but I won't. I'm not interested for your family's sake in particular, but in general, what I was thinking about, as we talked about on Facebook, I've been wanting to do a podcast for a while now, but certainly the last few days, because of all the stuff that's happening, because of the, in essence, murder, or certainly the killing of, I'm blanking now. What's his name, George? Floyd, who got killed, but of course in the riots and so forth. And I was thinking of multiple reflections from a Christian perspective. And then I thought, instead of just doing it, because everybody wants to vent, and I thought doing a podcast kind of venting. And then I thought, well, instead of just maybe venting, which may or may not be good, but I mean, venting from a Christian perspective, like ways of thinking about how to do this in a Christian perspective. And I thought it'd be great to have someone else on. And I thought it'd be great to have someone who's not white. And so unfortunately, not that you're my only token black friend. I saw your name on Facebook, and I thought Eddie's the perfect guy for this. I've got other, I start thinking of all those.
One guy.
I got my one guy. It's like that old joke when I grew up in Mississippi. It's like, I'm not racist. I've got a black friend. Yeah. I thought of that. And I thought Eddie's perfect. And a lot of the black guys I have, I'm friends with, are a little more introverted. And I thought, well, Eddie's not. And that'd be great. And just love Eddie. I thought this is great. And also, so I'm not at all, of course, just for podcast listeners, I don't represent all white people. Eddie doesn't represent all black people. But what I'm
an interesting study when it comes to all of this.
Yeah. And I wanted to hear from perspective, because it certainly is going to be different culturally, but also because Eddie happens to be married to a white woman who is
she has white parents.
Just puts up with so much. What's that?
And she has white parents.
And she has white parents. Yeah. Oh my goodness! And so I thought, what a great dynamic. Yeah, it was a great dynamic. And I thought, what a perfect person for multiple reasons. And one was to have that dynamic of your background and what you've experienced. And I don't, like I said earlier in our messaging back and forth, I don't really have a strict agenda. I'm not really leading us anywhere, but I thought it'd be interesting to reflect maybe your perspective or your view of what's going on. Not that we're going to solve all the world's problems, but also I thought it'd be interesting for my podcast listeners, they're a little more used to this, is me offering maybe some kind of reflections from a biblical perspective, some things we might say to some of the things that have been put out there. And I love how Dennis Prager, he's a commentator for years and years. I love how he says his goal is to clarify at least when they have people who might disagree with him. And I'm okay with disagreement, but what makes me so excited about doing it with Eddie, and of course, just about anybody, most people, I guess, on Facebook, not everyone, but is that, but that we have, as so many people have noticed, we've just lost the art of being able to communicate these things, talk about things. And I'll say this a little bit, and then I'll stop, and I want to get your feedback. I have several things that might be worth reflecting on together. My first is something about the issue of race that to me has become very unfortunate. And it's become the same unfortunate category as things like same-sex marriage or abortion or Trump. And these are issues, it seems to me, that in my experience, most people have lost the capacity to talk about. It's like it seems to me, what seems to be meaning, like, when I look at Facebook posts or watch the news or listen to conversations, that people so often are listening to these magical words or something to find if they can just as quickly as possible pigeonhole you. And if I can just write you off, or I agree with you, or I disagree with you wholeheartedly, it's such a binary relationship. I either hate everything you stand for, or we're on the complete, so it's sides, it's based on sides. And it seems to me that the race is now, maybe not now, today, I'm just saying whatever time it happened, maybe it's been around forever in America, I don't know. But to me, race fits in that same kind of category of something where people have lost that capacity. And I see sometimes, for example, on Facebook, someone might write a nuanced post of what their opinion is, and little footnote, I don't think Facebook's the best place to have long conversations because of all the reasons. Eddie's shaking his head, you can't see it, but I concur. It's just it ends up being kind of like sound bites, or you had to put, even when people try to nuance it, and in my humble opinion, they nuanced it well. You don't have to agree with every point, but they've nuanced it well. Still the comments, yeah, but, and they'll just change it off course, and just, I get the impression that if these people were in the same room, they would have spent more time just yelling or pointing fingers versus pausing. And so, anyway, that's my first thing about that. I'll move on. But so, just in general, what are your thoughts? If you have it, you don't have to have any comments or question based on what I say. You can take it a different direction. But having said that, I'll stop for a second. What are your thoughts about all that?
No, I agree, and I think people like my mom told me growing up that sometimes us men, and once again, not pigeonholing everybody, but we have a tendency to we listen to respond and not just listen just to listen. And I think nowadays, I kind of think that's kind of the one of the problems that we have going on, especially on Facebook. I think nobody ever wants to be wrong, people aren't taking other people's opinions into consideration. It's Some people are going more fact driven, like these numbers say this, and because these numbers say this, for example, with the killings and stuff like that, like more white people are being killed by cops than black people, and then other people are saying, well, the percentages say that we're being killed at a higher percentage than they are. I have one friend in particular that anytime this situation comes up, he's always quick to pull out the facts, right? And numbers can't always quantify how your feelings, and it gets very frustrating because sometimes you just want to be said, you just want to be told, you know what, Eddie, I know you're going through something rough right now, or just black people in general. I know you're going through something rough right now because this may have hit home for you, and I'm sorry. I understand. If you want to talk to me, reach out to me, talk to me. I'm here to talk to you. I don't represent everybody, but I care about you, and I want to know your feelings on it. Just to talk to me. But a lot of the times, it's the common thing right now is it's fine. I mean, I'm sorry that it happened, and then that word comes in there, and that word just kind of makes everything that you said before that irrelevant. And that word is "but."
But I wait for.
and that's what bothers me and frustrates me the not the most, but just it's one of the things that really gets to me. And it's always, yeah, Eddie, he was murdered, but did he listen? But did he do this? But did he do that? And sometimes there's no need for the but. It's just, I'm sorry, and it can get really frustrating sometimes. And Facebook is a culprit of it, you know, a big culprit of it. I do think when you get together face to face with people, I guess when they're not afraid, they're maybe more afraid of your actions, or maybe they're just more heartfelt and they can see the pain on your face versus you can't really see the pain on somebody's face when you're clicking on a keyboard. So it gets frustrating, but yeah, that's some of it right there, man. There's a lot going on. So like
That's
if
good.
I wrote it down, I could, you know, but yeah, it's a
No,
lot.
that's great. It's a good start. Um, I really appreciate you. I think I appreciate what you said, and I think I have been thinking a lot during this process from perspective of a counselor because I've counseled, as you know, individuals and couples now for 15 years. I think very much about. I'm sure as any psychologist or therapist is doing is when you deal with people who are processing grief, people are processing woundedness, and my experience, most people, or at least many people, just do not know how to deal with that. They don't know how to deal with it on internally. That is to say, so many people don't have the skill sets to process their own grief or anger or whatever. Then it's a whole other skill set of how do I and what do I do help other people. So those are two different things inside of me versus also inside of you, because I feel responses, I feel emotions about what's going on, just as you do. But they're two different issues of how do I deal with those and process that. And so when we see those people who are inadequate to deal with it, I think it brings up all kinds of things that make it worse, quite frankly, for problems. And one of those problems, it seems to me, is based on what you're saying, which is, from what I hear you're saying, is instead of validating the pain a person is going through, they kind of validate it. And they might even really are trying to validate it, but they're trying to get the person to look on the other side. And any therapist will tell you that's not what you do when you validate someone's pain. You don't say, "I'm so sorry your dog died," but there are a lot of dogs out there. You
Right.
can pick out another one. "I'm sorry that your wife left you," but there are a lot of fish in the sea. And that's what a lot of people do, and they're just wrong to do it. When it comes to typical grief counseling, you don't do
And
that.
it's kind of just, I mean, because literally Facebook is the dominant right now in my life. It shouldn't be dominant, but it's just, you know, when you're stuck home and you can't go out, you know,
Right, right,
you're working on the computer, so Facebook is up or your phone dings. So it's prominent right now because I'm
right.
not driving all the time now. You
Mm.
know, so it's kind of like uh the whole all lives matter versus Black Lives Matter thing. And I was just having this discussion with my wife about it, and she was like, I don't know if people will understand that, but I'm somebody that really I'm big into analogies. I want people to understand what I'm saying, so I try to break it down into something that they can feel or see or understand, so they can feel what I'm feeling, right? So when it comes to when people say all lives matter, my analogy that I was telling to my wife was, it's kind of like cancer, right? Let's compare cancer and just lives in general. So if when somebody says all lives matter, it's kind of like they're talking about cancer. And if you see somebody with a breast cancer awareness T-shirt on, right? You're not going to go up to that person with the breast cancer awareness T-shirt and say, "Well, I know uh, breast cancer is there, but all cancer is really important." You're not gonna take away from the breast cancer to say, you know, well, there's prostate and there's this and there's that kind of cancer. They can concentrate just on breast cancer and that be an important matter versus all lives mattering. You know, it's you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
And that was my easiest way to kind of equate it and try to pass it on to somebody. It's not that cancer doesn't matter. Cancer matters. It's very important. We need to try to get rid of it and destroy it and take care of it. But that doesn't mean that breast cancer doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. And in many ways, and I have a couple of follow-up questions for you. In many ways, I appreciate the analogy. Yes, absolutely. So that's right. A person, it seems to me by default, if they're in their right mind, let's assume they're normal, rational people, they don't go up to a person with the pink ribbon on and say, "Yeah, what about cervical cancer?" I mean, no one gets upset.
Right.
That's right. That's right. So why do that? Because they would say probably because it's one of the most predominant ways you can help save people is because so many times people think, and that's a long story, but breast cancer can perhaps be caught early enough, and so it can save more lives and so forth. Um, the and I think that, and so far as that goes, I think the analogy holds. I think however, and tell me what you think about this. I think a lot of people would, what I have found to be the case, I, I'm I'm forced so many times to give anecdotal evidence, which isn't very good evidence because I can't cite studies on this. But then I'm okay with that because we'll both just do that, and it just means from our limited experience, I'm fine. I'm fine with that because if this were in a court of law, I have to get charts and graphs, and I it's not in a court of law; it's just a podcast between friends.
And your handwriting's not very good. I remember it on the whiteboard.
So. Oh, come on now, come on now. You remember I said that I have jokes. I still remember jokes. I said, and that is when I have heard people say Black lives do matter, and so do Mexican lives, and so do white people lives, so do Asian lives. If someone says that, or the all lives, oftentimes there's the accusation, or at least the implication, that the person who says that is being racist. That is to say, if you do not fully agree with the fact that, if you do not in this moment elevate the fact that Black lives matter too, it means you're racist. So if a person is trying to elevate all lives to mattering, it means, does that, if everyone's not, use your analogy of the cancer. It's like saying, if you don't acknowledge in this moment that breast cancer is a very serious thing, if you mention any other kind of cancer, it means you don't care about breast cancer.
Right. Yep.
It seems to me to be then that's where the analogy, if and when that when that happens to me, that's when the analogy falls down, because that's why I've heard some people get very frustrated to say, it seems to be the case that if I mention any other lives, the people who die as well, it means I am vitiating, or I'm devaluing the fact that Black lives matter too. But it sounds to me that your response would be that on its purest form, the response is, I'm not vitiating other people's lives. I'm just trying to draw
about this right now.
Right now. Right.
This is where the focus is. Somebody just died from breast cancer. Knock on wood. No, I don't want anybody to pass from that. But that's why we're referring to that right now. So to bring out all cancers right now is like, well, you're kind of slapping me in my face because I'm talking about this particular moment and this particular person. Right. And you know, while even bringing up the word racist, or racism, right? I think racist gets thrown around too much, right? I don't think everybody's racist. I think that word, like I said, gets thrown around too much. I think more people are prejudiced, and prejudice gets associated or lumped in with being racist. And I don't think everybody should be thrown in that same boat, because we all have prejudices. You know, it doesn't matter who it is. We could be walking down the street and somebody with all kind of tattoos covering their face, and we could cross the street because that guy looks dangerous. He might have, you know, an earring from his ear to his nose, and you know, but you know, from what I was always understood, being racist is you thinking your race is superior to somebody else's race based on the color of their skin. And I don't think everybody technically, you know, feels that way. I think I think a lot of these categories that fall under races are really just prejudice, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. I completely concur that racism, like homophobe, like all kinds of stuff, these are the most extreme form of something. And then if you can label that, if you can label them, that's the point. If you label someone, you disregard them.
Right.
When you talk about Black Lives Matter, what do you think? Well, first off, just very quickly, do you support that? It sounds like you support that expression.
And
do you ever support the expression?
Like,
I'm not tricking you. I'm just adding you.
No. I'm just saying, like, yes, I see it as, you know, supporting breast cancer. Like, yes, I feel like sometimes that we are not looked at as the same as other people. So I feel like, but what the problem is saying I agree with them or join them or say that I'm a part of them or I support them. It gets leapt into the negative of, you know, just like now, the people that are rioting or the people that are militant right now, people automatically go to them versus, you know, and I don't, it's not even necessarily, you know, because it is an organization. but I'm not even necessarily saying I agree with everything the organization does. I agree with the preference
Sure.
of it
Gotcha.
all,
Gotcha.
that we matter. Like, please don't look at us like, we're any less than you, because we're all the same. We're all a part of the human race. And there's times, David, that like I truly feel in my heart that I'm not looked at as good as somebody else just because of the way I look. And that hurts me to my soul, like, and I don't want to get emotional or anything like that, but like and then when you go on Facebook and you look at your who you see are your friends or your acquaintances, and they just kind of push stuff aside, or they just say yeah but, or they're more, they start talking about the cop and how, yeah, this cop's bad but all the rest of them are good. It just feels like the life of that man is kind of really just kind of pushed to the side, and not the focus of what really should be going on. So I don't condone the looting and the rioting and all that stuff like that, but I can't say I don't understand it.
I do want to talk about the writing a little bit. We'll say more about the. I have a few questions. Well, I'm gonna put this question out there, and you can respond to them if you want to. First off, in the order in which you want to.
Yeah.
One is I'm curious about the Black Lives Matter expression when you said the they. Like, I wonder who's the target audience. That's my curious. Who's the target audience of, just as you said, and Lord knows I'm not lumping you, and I appreciate what you're saying. I'm not categorizing you or putting you to other people. But like you said, in just a general idea. So if a person's in a general idea, Black Lives Matter, who's the target audience for that message? And two, what do you hope that saying does or communicates? What's the end goal function? The other question I have is, I mean,
Well, let me
it's
do
like,
it. And my brain ain't big enough to quantify multiple questions at one time. So
I'll come back to go ahead. Go ahead.
honestly, I just one at a time. I just hope people that don't understand, have never been in my shoes before, I hope that the right message comes across, that you know they are treated a little bit differently. Maybe not everybody, but sometimes they're treated a little bit differently. So there's some empathy, or there, and there's different people living different lives and different classes of, but just overall in general, I just feel like sometimes, we're treated a little bit differently than others. And um, by this in this movement, what I hope is that people can understand some of our frustrations, and kind of correct some things that are going on in life. So I can't speak for the
Sure, sure,
organization
sure,
itself,
sure.
because it is an organization and not just like a movement. Like, there's somebody out there, the head of it and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
as far as what I just want people to know the suffering that we're going through, and the pain that we feel, and why we get so frustrated, and stuff like that. So that's the target audience, is is really everybody. There's
Okay.
no, not one. It's not whites, it's not Hispanics, it's just people in general. Like, I want you to know that there's this pain there that I'm going through. So talking about it or putting it out there, you know, helps validate it, a bit, because we've been telling people this stuff happens for years,
Mhm.
but like, there's cameras now everywhere now, so people are starting to see it, you know, and
Mhm. Mhm.
going from there. So sorry, what was question number
No,
two?
that's good. That's documented. You're right. I certainly think that our day and age has brought many things to life that before was only in pictures in the distance or whatever. I mean, that's one of the things that's so disturbing about his death is that you watch someone die, you watch someone get killed,
Right.
and that's. I
I
mean,
can
it's
I
just.
can honestly, I couldn't finish it, David.
I've only
Couldn't.
watched portions of it. I
I
can't.
watched I watched the first minute of it, and as soon as I heard the first like two or three, I can't breathe. Like, my heart sunk, because, and this is like, for your audience to see. Literally, I'm telling you, when I saw him, I saw me.
Mm,
Because
mm,
let's say, I don't know, because when this happens, all their criminal past gets brung up, or if they did something wrong or whatever like that. But I see me, and I don't I like I don't I like it hurts, because I don't know like I'm a good guy, David. I'm a good bubbly, like you said. I'm fun. I'm funny. I love life. I love people. I love everything. And I truly feel that if somebody points and says, "Hey, I think he did something bad," that none of that mattered. None of that, it doesn't matter if I was a great person, a bad person, a medium person. I feel like it doesn't matter. The minute I am suspected of doing something wrong, the me being a black man, it's not I'm innocent until proven guilty. It's you're guilty, and you got to hope there's a way to prove your innocence. And that's how I feel. Like I try not to live my life like, hey, there's racist people out there, so I gotta watch I can't, because I wouldn't be me. Like I would be an angry, bitter person all the time. I'd always be looking over my shoulder. I wouldn't have any friends. I wouldn't, I'd be part of a militant group or something like that. And I don't. That's not me on the inside. But it's hard to watch these things and to listen to these things and just keep shrugging them off and not wanting to do something about it. So,
I really appreciate your story and what you're saying, and I mean it. I'm thinking of many things. The one is I'm praising God because I know that there'll be a lot of people listening to this podcast who will have never heard the inner workings and how these things are affecting you, and I mean it. So I'm very, very grateful for that. Why do you think it? Okay, the studies I've seen, many studies through the years, demonstrate that by far the number one killer of black men is other black men.
Right.
I mean, by far, it's I can't remember the figure, and I probably should have more, but I mean, I've seen many different studies over and over and over and over. The number one killer over and over and over is other black men. And as far as I can remember, I've never seen marches with Black Lives Matter in downtown Detroit, downtown New York City, downtown Chicago, downtown New Orleans, where the most amount of black male murders occur. They matter when they're killed by other black men. Why is it, do you think, it takes a white person to kill a black person to all of a sudden, for the angst and sorrow of black culture and having experienced racism for so long, gets the attention?
I think it's because that person is supposed to be there to protect you. That person is supposed to be there to have your back. That person is supposed to be there to be for you in your time of need. And when it's kind of like your parents, right? If you look up to police. People want to grow up to be police. People idolize police. Not because of their salary or anything like that, but little kids walk by and they wave at the policemen. And in our time of need, if I'm scared, if somebody's coming to hurt me, that's the person I call, right? So I think the reason why people are up in arms is because that person that's supposed to be our savior in our time of needs is the one that's hurting us. It's kind of like, and I mean, I get it. I mean, there very well should be, protests or movements or marches about, black on black crime. But it's if you look at it as like the family, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but like, it's kind of like when brothers and sisters fight against each other. They fight, they get over it, they move on, they wash their hands and they're done. And if somebody else comes in and fights with that brother or sister, it's like, oh no, there's no, you can't do that. It's a no. Now,
if I can jump in there real quick, because that's something about the whole movement to me that seems to really hurt the cause. And you're not here to represent the cause. I'm not for one second asking you to defend them. I'm curious what your thoughts on all this. I really mean it. That's one. So my opinion is one of the things that hurts the cause of the Black Lives Matter is that, based on what you, I think it's a good analogy of the family, that I'm sure there are millions of private conversations, but publicly and in the media, I mean, Oprah and what's the guy who does all the Medea and all that stuff? Yeah, he's so funny. Yeah. Oh Lord, a lot. Oh, his movies, man. Oh, Lord, he cracks me. So um, when it's from the outside, it's unfair. When it's from the inside, it's fair. That's the
I don't think it's. I don't think it's. I
well,
wouldn't necessarily it's fair.
well, I don't think it is fair. I think that's the implication.
Right.
What I mean is, it's within the bounds. Like you just said, we're family. Brothers and sisters kill each other. Yeah, and then they move on. But if a white person does it, or if a cop does it, you've crossed a line. I remember years ago when Oprah was doing stuff forever, and she had what's the rapper's name? See, I keep wanting to say other rappers' names. Jay-Z. She had Jay-Z on there, and it was him not being rapping. You can see the episode, I'm sure, somewhere. But anyway, and he was kind of giving tips about rapping, and she brought up something about him saying the N word over and over and over. And she said, "You know how I feel like that?" And he goes, "Yeah, you know, I'm sorry, yeah, you know." But she goes, I basically, I hate it. I despise the fact. I'm paraphrasing, but this is very close. She was very vocal about that. I hate the N word, and why do you do it? She goes, "Yeah, it's kind of what we do." Da da da. And I thought, good for her, first off, because I don't know of hardly any other black celebrity, period, who is saying this adamantly, that when you say these words, it evokes racism. It evokes slavery. No matter what the etymology of the word and negro and black or whatever, got it. But this term came to Southern America, the southern parts of America, because da 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 da. And him was like, yeah, but the point is, it's fair game. And that's not his words, my word. But basically, the point is, it's fair game. It is fair game. It's a rap. And I grew up in a time where black people, well, I grew up in Mississippi, where everyone called each other that word all the time. They did. I mean, kids did all the time. And it's like today, well, it's not right because white people call each other all the time. But white people says it. My point is, I can get a long list of things where it seems like it's quote unquote fair. It's in the family. It's cultural. You can make horrible jokes, horrible demeaning jokes, as long as you're black. You can make fun of you're darker than other people, and studies demonstrate that. As you know, I'm not saying that, I'm saying for our podcast listeners, psychological studies demonstrate. I've asked many black people that the darker you are, the more they think you're menacing, the more dangerous you are. They make fun of more and more the more you quote talk white. I've got several other friends. One of my good friends is biracial, and he talked about this on and on and on about how he didn't fit in both worlds because he talked too white, but he couldn't talk black enough, and on and on.
I'm in
But
that
again,
boat.
huh? And you get that.
I'm in that boat.
You get the same. And I keep,
But
and
see,
I'm
that's part of the problem is because why is and just a little piece of what you said.
sure.
Why is talking? It's bigger than all of this, but it's like why is talking proper talking white?
Right. Preach. Don't make sense.
That shouldn't. It should be. Oh, you just talk proper. It's not that you talk white. No, you talk proper, and
Yeah, probably.
it's yeah.
And so that's my point. It seems to me to hurt the cause because it genuinely, and I've talked to my family and my children about this a lot. It genuinely makes me sad. Not that I'm Mr. Messiah. I'm just saying my emotional responses. It makes me very sad when I've heard these stories for years. It strikes me as overwhelmingly hateful and mean. Of course, I'm a Christian, and it's very unloving to treat people that way. I don't care. I mean, and on top of that, it's stupid reasons like talking. That's just a stupid reason to exclude someone from your group or the color of their skin. Like they could control that. These are really stupid reasons, and they're bad reasons. They kill people's self-esteem. And where I'm going with that is, it seems to me that if there had been decades and decades from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, like every decade, there's a constant rally cry from within the black culture to stop this. We have to treat each other with respect and not. And so I think back to your concept, with which I concur, the prejudice and racism. If there's a profound internal prejudice toward other black people because of the way they talk, because of the darkness of their skin or lightness of their skin or whatever it might be, where they're from or what's East Coast, West, whatever, it seems to me that would. I'm not saying this is all there is and that's enough. I'm just saying that if there had been a constant movement of this, and then a white person did it, not even just police officers, like the other day when those two guys were in the neighborhood and they shot the guy who was, well, I mean, it's just horrible. Anyway, so my point is, it would seem to me it would help the cause to say, look, we as no one person speaks for the whole culture, but if black culture and there's celebrities, we're constantly saying we've got to do more. And back to Sidney Poitier, and they made huge strides, and they talked about it. Then when this happens, when a person of a different race does it, it fits a narrative that was already established for a long time, which is we're working to respect ourselves. We want you to respect us as fellow citizens. And I'll stop there. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm not the most scholar when it comes to these types of things, and I don't have all the answers. And I try to spend my time I try to spend my time doing other things, working on the business and stuff like that, than researching these topics. But I mean, I think I know enough to 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 get in trouble. I would say, but like I I would say part of it goes back to the situation that in these places that there is a lot of that crime, the black on black crime. I would want to go back and look, because I've heard, I've read, I've watched, studies on, you know, y- just from being able to buy houses, being able to get out of the poverty, being kept in the loop, the the welfare train, the knowing the more kids you have, if you're not with somebody, trying to separate the black family from the black man from the family. Like I don't know if it's as simple as, you know why are they killing them, and they just hate each other, so they're killing themselves. I think partially the system is set up for us to fail in certain instances, and I think that plays a big role in it. I'm not excusing it. I don't really have a great answer for you on why we don't speak up about that. But I mean, I guess no. My answer still would be the reason why there's a big uproar when it's a white police officer versus us killing each other is still that person is supposed to be there to protect you. They took an oath. They're paid. They're supposed to be the good guy. They're supposed. I mean, there's criminals. There will always be criminals. There will always be bad guys. But when it comes down to the end of the day, the police officers, the CIA, the firefighters, the EMS, they're the capes. So we want to call them heroes when it's 9/11 and it's these other big uh, events that they come in and help. And God knows I love them. Just like how you were talking about how you have, I'm your token black friend, but just playing. I have my god sister. She's married to a police officer. I have a gay aunt that is a police chief. I mean, I have, there's there's one of my good friends in high school, AJ Jerhushiak was his name, and his mom is a police officer to this day. I think she still is. She might have retired or not, but she treated me, and I was in high school, this skinny little black kid. She treated me like I was one of her kids.
Mm.
So when I tell you I have a deep love for police officers, I do. But that is just something that when they turn when they one of them turns bad. I know not one apple spoils the bunch, but
Right, right,
when it happens from one of them, it hurts. It's a shot.
right,
It's like kryptonite going through Superman. It's
right,
like,
right,
oh,
right.
they can be hurt, type of thing.
Yeah.
So
No, I appreciate that. That's good. I think that police officers, I have the same view. I want to feel safe. I mean, we're trained. That's supposed to be people who protect us. Well, to serve and protect. That's their tagline. Same thing true with medical professionals, and the same thing, of course, from my perspective, it's supposed to be the same case with clergy. And so, whenever a minister takes advantage of a person, it's heartbreaking to me, and it's extra heartbreaking to the person who was vandalized or victimized, because you're supposed to go to a person who's considered safe, and it's a safe place. And when it's not considered safe, person will take advantage of you. It is extra worse. That's for sure. What about this? Talk a little about the concept, you think, of privilege. I was thinking about, I've thought a lot about the concept of white privilege for a long time. But really in the last few years, because it's become much more popular to talk about it and bombard white privilege, white privilege. Um, what I don't, what I, based on what I know, what I do deny is that there is systemic white privilege. What I mean is there are laws on the books, not just as much as I don't believe that court systems, the courts in America are not geared to put black people in prison. There's no law if you're black, yeah, you get double the sentence. There's nothing like that law. So if and when and I don't know of any, I don't know of any at all in the American court
And I
system.
don't think it was. I don't just like I said. I just know just a little bit to get in trouble, but I'm no lawyer. But from what I've been told, seen, read, it's not that there's laws set up to give us longer times. It's just that when we're put in the same situation as somebody else, we will get longer times for those sentences. And two, like doing drugs are bad in general. Selling drugs are bad, but from the war on drugs, from what I was told and read and watched and stuff like that, stuff that like expensive drugs, you would get less time for being caught with those.
Right,
But
right, right,
cheaper drugs, you would get
right.
a longer time.
Longer time,
So
right?
it was
Yeah, inverse. Yeah,
the system is set up for us to go to jail longer and more often. It's that's the yes. I mean, I
well, the distinction I hear, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I guess where I'm going to this, and Ben Shapiro makes this point very often. I think it's a valid point, which is when we talk about something systemic, this goes with racism and with privilege. That's why I'm putting these together in my mind.
right,
One has to do with systemic, meaning there are legal precedents, there are law codes in the American court system that will necessarily lead to this. Like, for example, minimum sentencing. That's a
right,
law code. That means it's minimums. Now, I don't think those things are all correct, but number points, that's systematic legal system. So the judge doesn't have any authority there because it's minimum sentencing.
right,
Same thing, I think, with privilege. I don't know of any law code that systematically says, yeah, because you're white, you get X, Y, Z. Now, that's one thing. It's another issue, it seems to me, because I don't know how it can't be, and that is whether or not human beings, the individuals in those places, are not influenced by both conscious and unconscious prejudices, desires, both for positive and for ill. Of course, I mean, there's no way that doesn't happen, and they can track judges who more often than not give more years for cocaine versus marijuana, or more. I mean, 78% of the time but this other judge 30% of the time only gives more than 5 years, and so that means that demonstrates it's not a legal issue. It's not in the law codes, but it's maybe it's a worldview issue or philosophical issue. Okay, my point is the same thing when it comes to privilege, but I think that distinction matters when it comes to people's conversations and
right,
the way they understand things is because I've heard people argue back and forth to me on those two different issues. One is to say, but there is no such thing as systematic da da da, and they'll say, well, it happens all the time.
right,
Well, those are not the same thing. One is it happens versus this, and so this isn't. Well, David, who gives a rip? Well, I guess for clarity, one thing that helps to say. So let me put a fine point on it. When I thought a lot about white privilege, I was thinking I don't know of any law or any job I've ever received ever because it says, well, if you're white, you get privilege or you get a one up or whatever. There's nothing I've ever read in any document ever in my life ever, and I've read a lot of documents in my life.
right,
Um, but that's not to say that studies have demonstrated that. I heard one counselor saying this the other day that studies demonstrate that white people, like on average, now I haven't seen the study. I heard a person citing the study, the conclusion, so I can't. I'm assuming this is true. Uh, that on average, white people get so many more minutes per interview in a job interview. On average, white people get so many minutes more. That it just there's a general predilection for people to offer more XYZ toward a white person than toward a black person. Of course, you have this, it's not just amongst white people, it's amongst all the races. And there's a classic study, I can't remember what it's called now, but there's a classic study on it for many, many, many years where they show little black girls dolls, a black doll and a white doll, and say which one's friendly,
right. Which
which one's
one's good? Which
friendlier,
one's bad? Or
which
which
one's
one's
good. Yes,
nice?
and it's
Yes,
so
seen the same
depressing to
study.
see these kids time and time again pick the white girl. I mean, it's just like which one's prettier, which are pretty. All I'm saying is, so that does. And so when I think about white privilege in that sense, well, but I'll say this last thing and hear your feedback on it. Um, when I think about the Martin Luther King Jr. and the marches and so forth that he did, I think about his desire and their desire, from what I understand from the history lessons I've learned, um, that they were attempting to change law codes. They were attempting to talk. They were attempting to really change systematic racial inequality inside of our law codes, and they did it, of course, by being respectful and kind and whatever. And eventually, it did change. Uh, And since it seems those things have been changed on the law codes, what's left over in general is not that. It's now you have certain individuals who are prejudiced and racist, like
Hmm.
certain individual cops or police officers or teachers or I mean, that's just human condition. When people say it's got to stop, then my question is, well, if the chief problem of systematic legal injustice has been mostly solved, that we don't, it's not that black people are now 3/5 of the vote in the Constitution. That nonsense is all over. We don't have slaves. Then the issue is, well, if that problem that's been solved, there's a new problem, which is, of course, it seems to me, a heart condition. That's not solved, it seems to me, by one by a lot of things. And in the Christian worldview, the solution to that problem, to racism, is Jesus. And Jesus says the answer to that is to have a change of heart. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what it is. It's not from the outside that makes a person impure, says in Mark, but instead what comes out of the person. And so Jesus would say, I would certainly, and the Christians have always said that what changes a person inside is that. I'm gonna, if I can, come back to that a little bit. I'm gonna pause for a second and say before I move on about the Jesus and the solution. That is the issue of privilege. Um, so I've been reflecting a lot on that and back to that, and whether or not I've been privy to that kind of privilege. And I think, well, I don't think so, but I do think I have been. What's the word? I have received the benefits of being white in that it's probably very statistically true that if I went and interviewed every person who ever saw me in a grocery store, they're less likely to think I'm a threat, even though I'm 6'3" and 210 pounds, than I would a black person who's half my size, who might have their hat pulled down or a hoodie on or something. I mean, I don't doubt that at all. Uh,
Right.
but what I don't feel, two things. One is, what I don't feel is the need to ask forgiveness for that. Period. I don't feel, because I've done nothing wrong, because someone else has a certain view about me.
All right.
And so I hear your thoughts about that. The other thing is, I was thinking about the post you put on Facebook a couple of days ago, which is someone's holding a sign said, basically, privilege is not thinking anything wrong with it when it doesn't affect me personally.
All right.
And I was thinking right off the bat, I thought, I mean, I'm really reflecting. I go, is that true? Am I have that privilege? And I think, I kind of get the point, but logically speaking, I think, no, that I can think of counterexamples all day long where that's demonstrably false. For example, I might not think it's wrong for a certain Asian cultural issue where it doesn't affect me whether or not they bow down when they meet someone. I don't think it's wrong if they don't bow down, but in their culture it does. In what conceivable way do I have privilege because I don't think something else is not wrong and it doesn't affect me personally, so I don't care? It was just not a moral issue to me whether you bow down. I mean, in terms of examples, well, what privilege do I have now? You say, well, now you have the privilege of you don't have to bow down. But I'm not. The point is the point is I can think of many examples. So I'm not sure if that's the best definition of privilege.
Right.
It seems to me that it's when I receive a benefit for something.
Right. And you don't. And what you're saying is you don't think receiving that benefit or having that benefit, you don't think you're saying that's not the privilege. I'm just trying to follow. I'm just trying to follow you. Like,
I guess the two things. One is to say it seems to me that oftentimes privilege, if a person does have a privilege,
mhm.
black people have a privilege to being more likely to be on the sports team.
Right.
Do black people need to ask forgiveness? Are they morally culpable for being prejudiced, for assuming to be more sports athletic
See, and
prone?
I don't.
Well, no.
I think the issue with that those two words put together, right? I
What two words?
white privilege.
Okay.
That it's just like it's first of all the first thing whenever that comes up, it comes to with work. They talk about work, right? And it's not always about that with work. And I know I'm going against a guy with like 19 PhDs, so
No,
and my with my just my associates, and I know you're a well learnt man, but it's when it comes to the privilege, right? It's I have an analogy, but I'll say that because my wife thinks my analogy for this one is weak. So I'll throw that.
well, now you really got to share it.
I'll bring that up at the end. But it's just the fact that there's I feel, and this is my feelings. I have no statistical facts. I don't have any
Sure.
studies. I don't have anything, and I know it can be flipped on me very easily. But when it's flipped on me, if you look at the amount, it, there's very few places, David, that I feel that you can go in the United States of America and not feel safe. But there's a few that you can, like maybe going to Flint, Michigan, in the hood and walking around down the middle of the street, you might not feel safe, right? But like there's places that when me and my Caucasian wife would drive down, that she will have to second guess or think about not pulling in to a place because I don't know what could happen to my husband. So when we talk about privilege, we're saying like it's just not that, oh, because you have white privilege, you became a CEO of a 500 company. No, that's not. Some people may argue that, but when I'm talking about white privilege, I'm just saying you have the ability to go into a gas station and go into Jasper and get some snacks from the gas station and walk out and not have to worry about anything. But me, I would not even pull over in Jasper or Vidor because of what happened 20 years ago. That I don't know where that person is still around or talks about or whatever like that. So, but it's you have the privilege to do certain things and not second guess what you're going to do because something hasn't affected you. So I guess when I posted that sign, part of it has to do with that, right? So, for example, just me, I'm speaking on me, right? Certain in my day-to-day stuff, I'm a little. I feel like I got a little donut, a little tie around the waist, right? So I want to get out there and hit the gym and go running and stuff like that, right? But David, like before I leave the house, I make sure if I go run, it needs to be in the heat of the sun. Like I can't run early in the morning and I can't run late at night. If it's cold outside, I don't want to go run in the cold because if I go run in the cold, I need to put a hoodie on, right? Because it's cold and you lose a lot of heat from your head. So you'd want to put on a hoodie. I can't do that. And I live in a very nice, affluent area in Cyprus. There's not many hate crimes around here, but because of the color of my skin, because of the things that are happening, because every time you turn on the news, you see somebody that looks like me always on the news on a regular basis. And because the way Facebook is set up, you see all these crimes committed and stuff like that. My face is plastered all over the place. So I don't want to put on a hoodie and go run when it's 69 degrees because it's cold in Houston as soon as it drops below 70. But I don't want to. I can't do that. There's certain places I don't feel comfortable going. There's tons and tons and tons of different things, and then I don't have facts on it, but I would think there's a lot less people that hate you for the way you look versus a lot of people that hate me or dislike me for the way that I look, and it can. Okay, so just I looked at the census the other day, right? Because with all this stuff going on, right? And it said there's roughly 328 million people in the United States, right? And out of that 328 million, roughly here, y'all, you redheaded, no, no.
Handsome angels.
No. Caucasians make up, it said 76.5% of the population. So doing that math is roughly about 240 million Caucasians, and black people made up 13.5%. So that was really it was like 46 million people that made up. So that's a big disparity in people, right? But that's nobody's fault. You can't blame any of that or something like that, right? But I won't name names because I might put this on my Facebook too or whatever like that. But just for example, right? There's people that I know, right, that stop talking to other people once I came into their lives, right? That stopped that they had racist friends then, and they weren't racist, but it was okay to be race or prejudiced or racist around them, right? But as soon as I came around and they got to know me because they never really had a relationship with somebody that looked like me, and it kind of opened up their eyes, like, wow, like Eddie's nothing like what we see on the news all the time of all these people, baggy, hat turned around. That's a stereotype that they see on TV. But once they got to know me and know that I'm just a regular dude, just like them, I just happen to be a few hundred shades darker. That they had to cut people out of their lives that are still racist, right? But what's funny is I remember speaking with this racist person, and they were having they had a conversation just like you and I are having right now, David, right? So part of the privilege, right, is out of those 240 something million people, right? I would venture to say a lot of those people are business owners, a lot of those people are managers, a lot of those people are CEOs, a lot of those people are in positions of power, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't know if looking at you and looking at a person right next to you, I don't know which one of those is the good person and which one of those are the closet racist or the closet whatever, right? I don't know. So going through life, right, knowing there's just these two type of people, you kind of have this defense mechanism up, right? If I meet you in the store and I say, hey, and you don't wave at me, right? If another white person doesn't wave at you, you're like, oh, they must be having a bad day, or they might be in a fight, or they might be just upset or whatever like that. But one of the things that has to cross my mind is, does he not like me because of the color of my skin? And it's like, so when it comes down, the privilege is like, I think there's less things that y'all have to worry about on a day-to-day basis than what I have to. And I can't prove it, David. There's no numbers. There's no statistical facts.
Well, sure. No.
These closet racists are not going to come out. But at the same time, this privilege that we're talking about too, that can't be put into numbers. But for example, just like the other day, right? I'm sure you saw the story of the lady at the park with the dog, and the black dude was bird watching, and he just wanted her to put. You didn't
Sorry,
catch
no.
it. Okay. So for your listeners, if you didn't catch it, there was a guy in New York City, right? He's a bigger gentleman, but total regular dude that is bird watching. A black dude that went to, like, I think he went to Harvard or Yale, but he's bird watching. Black brothers don't bird watch. This brother was bird watching, right?
This brother was.
Yeah. And this white lady, she was some high up in the company, or like she was in a position of some kind of power. Like she wasn't just a regular employee, but she was out with her dog, right? And she decided that he was like, ma'am, you need to put your dog on a leash, right? Because there's a leash law, and the dogs running around could affect the sanctuary of the park and with the birds and stuff like that. And this is a place where people go bird watch. So she immediately said, and you can look it up. I'll send you the link if I can find it. She immediately said, she started getting flustered because this black man, was telling her, this white woman, what law she should abide, because it was the law. Like you heard of the barbecue Becky's and stuff like that. So basically he was saying, like, ma'am, can you please put your dog on a leash? And she was upset that he was telling her what to do. So she then gets on the phone, or she's being recorded at this time, and she's like, hey, I am going to call the police and tell them that an African-American man is trying to harm me and is threatening my life, even though this gentleman did none of that. So she therefore goes ahead and calls the police, and then she goes into acting mode, and she starts acting distressed, all while manhandling this dog that she just adopted. So all that to say this, so all this got put out on Facebook and Twitter and the whole everything, and she got fired from her job and all of this and that. But part of that privilege, right, is if he did not have that camera, right? If he didn't have that camera, he would have probably gone to jail for who knows what for how long. And this is no thug. This is a learned man, because they would have believed her over him. It more than likely. I can't prove it. I don't have any statistics, But when she called the cops and said, "Hey, this man is threatening me," he would have probably been in trouble. But she knew, right? And this is somebody, I guess she, they did background and stuff on her, so she, anti-Trump and this and that. So she didn't fit that narrative part of it. But she knew instantly that she could weaponize my skin and use her skin as a battle cry, as oh, poor little me, this man. And because she didn't say this man is trying to attack me, she said an African American man, because she knew that would put some haste in it, and that was a trigger. So she basically weaponized my skin the instant she could. So when it comes to white privilege, there's no quantitative data that says that you have it. And I told my wife the other day, I'm not mad that you have it. If you use it. If you want to use it to your advantage, use it to your advantage. I don't care, but I want you to acknowledge, I want you to know that you have some type of privilege. And my wife was talking and she was saying, I think people don't want to acknowledge that it's out there, because if they acknowledge it's out there, that it might take away from some of their accomplishments. That's not what anybody wants to do. Like, so here's my bad analogy. Are you ready for it?
I don't know.
Okay. So my bad analogy is this, right? With white privilege, right? White privilege, and these two guys are the same color. Let's call them purple, right? These purple guys. One purple guy at 10, right? Is 7 foot, and the other purple guy is 5'11", right? The 7-footer and the 5'11" can both play basketball. If they choose to, they can both play basketball, right? If the 7-footer and the 5'11" guy both work equally hard and they're both equal across the board, right? Who do you think has a more chance of making it to the NBA? The 7-footer or the guy that's 5'11"?
7-footer. Yeah.
The 7-footer, right? So that's what I equate to white privilege, right? White privilege is you have that you have that lifeline that you're 7 foot, right? Now you can if that 7-footer doesn't like basketball or doesn't want to play basketball, and the 5'11" person works harder, they can make it to the league, and the 7-footer doesn't have to make it to the league. It's that you have this you can put in the same amount of work and you can get the same accomplishments, but you kind of have this head start that you being 7 foot allows you to be able to get to the league a little bit easier than somebody that's 5'11". I don't know if that
sure, you're saying there's a natural advantage. Not natural, but there's an advantage.
There's an advantage.
An a priori advantage.
That you can use. But if you choose not to use it, if you want to be an accountant, go be an accountant, and you're fine. Not everybody, because when it comes up, people are quick to say, well, where was my white privilege when my mom was beating up my dad, or when we were living paycheck to paycheck and we didn't have anything to eat? Nobody's saying just because you have white privilege that the world is given to you. You still have to work hard to accomplish. That 7-footer, he still has to go to every day, work hard, put in the work to become the player that he wants to be. But if he doesn't put in the work, he's not going to be not going to be that player. So it's a bad analogy. But I just want people to kind of grasp it or to understand that advantage. And then when it comes to jobs, I don't think it's a huge thing, but I think it can play a role, because we tend to want to be around people that look like us, right? I mean, naturally, there's not that many Hispanic players in the NFL. So if you ask a Hispanic player of any age, like, who's your favorite player, they might say, XYZ, because he looks like me. Anthony Munoz. I know a lot of older people that are Hispanic. They used to love Anthony Munoz, even though he played in Cincinnati. But there was not many people with a last name that they could, But
right.
All that if you understand what I'm saying, and I think you do. But you don't have to agree with it. But that's just kind of my feeling on when it comes to that situation.
I'm with you. No, I think it, and I don't think it's a horrible analogy. You're just saying there's a natural, not I use the word natural, but there's a priori advantage to those things, and it works. There's, I mean, different races have it for different reasons, for different benefits that come along with it. So there's a privilege to being um, in America. There's a privilege to being Mexican if you want to hire someone to work hard.
Right.
That is, whether they're lazy or not. There's a everyone. I mean, there's a general belief that Mexicans are going to work hard. I mean, at least I.
And I think yeah, that
Of
prejudice.
course, you're in Sa that's prejudice. It is. I mean, we were both living. You're in Cypress near, of course, Houston. I was there in Houston in Sugar Land for 12 years, and it's just true. There's a general belief that, and in general, it's true. There are some hardworking, and I'm going on a long list of things that are prejudice. So not all the prejudice are negative. It might be a positive thing,
Right.
but nevertheless, there are advantages depending on what the job is, what the situation is, and not. I hear what you're saying. Not all benefits apply the same way and in the same regard all the time. So a person might still have to work hard, but I think about in my life, back before I knew if I was going to stay in pastoral ministry, and I was looking at being professors and professorship. Professors are white male professors are a dime a dozen. We're everywhere. And so if you're female, especially if you're a black female or Asian female, whatever, you can get almost any job you want if you're qualified. But you don't have to be as qualified as a white male because you have to be the top, 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 top. It's like you have to be the MVP of the whites, but everyone else, you don't have to be the MVP. That doesn't mean everyone else is dumb. I'm just saying that you have a much more likely chance to get a job interview. And they know that. They know that in Elaine's field before she was in ministry was in education. You are much more likely to get a job as a principal or an AP assistant principal if you're male, because there's so many females who are principals or in APs in the education system. So she had a job that was basically, she was told basically it's yours, have a couple basically perfunctory interviews you got to go through. And the last second they hired a dude for her position. And it happened, he had almost no experience and no education, but he'd been a coach and he'd been whatever. They just, and so that kind of all, and boy, was she upset and hurt and sad. Like, it's not fair. I get this crap all the time. I mean, and it's not fair. It's not fair when I'm in my position that there's so many of us, but nevertheless, it tends to, and on it goes. And so, no, but yes, there's privilege different ways, but I hear what you're saying that a lot of people, I agree with what she said, that I think a lot of people don't want to talk about privilege because they might feel like it vitiates the hard work they put into something. I think about that in bodybuilding all the time because I've been following bodybuilders the last few years, and people say, what's the role of genetics? Man, genetics ain't nothing, man. No, I work hard. It's like if you bring up genetics, all of a sudden it means I don't work hard. Or if you bring up juice, you bring up some steroids. Man, I still work so hard. I'm the hardest worker in the room. Yeah, you are a hard worker, and you're juiced up on about 4 different kinds of. You got a little help, brother. Come on now, let's just say it. But I work
mean,
hard.
If your dad's 5'2" and your mom's 5'1", I mean, genetics gonna play a role in it.
Genetics gonna play a role, brother. I don't care who you are. It's gonna play something. I mean, come on now. I mean, when you look out anyway. So yeah, I think there's such a pushback on trying to say that. This last bit, I guess, last only because of time, because this has been very, very helpful for me. If one thing I thought of, last thing I think maybe I want to bring up, maybe last. I always say last is 5 other things, like a good preacher. Here's my last 3 points in the last 3 hours. The other day I saw a picture of a guy I know from a long time ago. He posted a picture of people kneeling. And of course, immediately I thought this is positive because I think that's appropriate response to what's going on. The woundedness is prayer, and it was just a position of deference and coming together in unity. And but they were divided. On the left side of the picture was a bunch of white people kneeling, and they had their hands up like they were praising and praying. And there was on the other side with black people. They're on a basketball court, I think in New York. And I thought, how cool is that? They're praying together and they're worshiping together and so forth. There's a couple people in the middle who are kind of like joining the two. But the tagline says along the lines of they got together and pray, and white people like beg for forgiveness for centuries of racism, like to the other black people. Mm-hmm. And that really struck me as absurd, that the idea that the white people would beg forgiveness to the people for centuries, when these are 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds, they haven't been around for centuries. And then there are people across from there on the All Star, they're not been around for centuries. I just thought, first off, you don't beg forgiveness for them. I was reflecting on that. That's something about, that reminds me of like reparations and so forth. I was thinking about when it comes to moral culpability. And of course, that just means moral guilt, that if someone has done something which deserves, they're in a state of having committed some kind of crime, or if it's something immoral. And I think about that often. And whether or not white people let's just be specific in North America, because of the history of slavery. Though Native Americans held other Native Americans as slaves, and Africans held other Africans as slaves, and Europe held other. Slavery has been a bedrock of almost every culture that has ever existed. It's not a white problem. It wasn't. Black people had other slaves. I mean, they were the. That's where we learned a lot of this stuff. So that's just history. But let's focus on the white people for just because I'll keep picking on me. It just. I want your thoughts on this. White people. I say I'm focused.
You're white?
You get me every time. What? It's just the coloring. It's just this lighting of the video. Look more orange than I do white right now. The idea. So I guess where I'm going with that is, I guess one is just a comment of that just seems patently absurd that I should ask forgiveness. I had nothing to do with systemic, horrible racism of white people way before I was alive. I have nothing to do. I'm not morally culpable for what racists do right now in my life. If my own family members, and they're not, if my own family members were rigid racists, I'm still not morally culpable for what they were doing right now. And that strikes me as a very obvious moral-ish or logical, moral, philosophical conclusion. I'm not morally culpable for that. The second thing is, secondly, we're talking about centuries ago. And so you're, as a black man, your race, you are not bearing the burden. Let's assume for a second your ancestors were slaves at some level. You're not bearing the burden of their slavery. You might say, well, I'm bearing some of the burden of the trickle effect of centuries. Okay. But that's still not the same as you. You're not a slave and you're a parent. That's my point. So that's one thing that struck me as very odd. And it seems to me to go beyond what is helpful to the situation, which is this. If I'm a racist, I should ask forgiveness and stop being a racist. If you're a racist, then racism in the Christian worldview. Now, if naturalism is true, we're just evolved chimps, all of us, then who gives a rip? I mean, who cares? Lions kill gazelles, who gives a rip? But in the Christian worldview, we're not just evolved chimps. We're something different, image of God and Christ bearers. So if that's the case, then racism is a sin. And that is the case, which means racism is sin, which means I need to ask God's forgiveness, confess that, and maybe ask forgiveness to someone I've ever been racist to. Okay, I guess there's my comment, but also my question to you is, what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on, and you talked about this just for a little bit a moment ago, which is, I'm curious, what do you want from white people? Like you said, I just want at least acknowledgement that you have some of that and some empathy, and I appreciate what you're saying. So what are your thoughts on that image, and also the point I just made about begging forgiveness to centuries, but also what do you want from people? What would make you happy? What would help you? I don't know how to ask the question. You might say, I don't want anything from anybody, but really.
I kind of get what you're saying. But as far as the picture goes, is wife getting on you?
Yeah.
Go ahead, back up. Back up, wife. Back up. No,
he can't see you because of the.
I want to see the babies.
I know what she looks like.
That's all she wants to see.
I want to see the babies sometime next time.
I got you. We can FaceTime.
Yeah.
David's number now. His correct number.
Elaine said, "Hey, wife said." Anyway, so she's gone now. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah. So the picture.
Gone, woman, gone. No, it's not.
Woman, gone.
When it comes to that, I think it's being done because some white people truly do understand what's going on. Because I think for some reason, I'm seeing a turn. And I can only go off of people I talk to, things I see on Facebook. Normally, when it's a black person does something wrong, not all, a lot of my white friends or acquaintances, they'll start posting, see, bad, this, bad, and then when it's the other way, the black people are like bad, but for some reason this time it's kind of creeping up. Like a lot of people that I don't ever see posts are now reaching out saying how bad they feel, how sorry they feel, how this is wrong. Like, maybe they didn't believe it before, but now like, okay, like this is time number 10 now. Like it's getting out of hand. So I think maybe I agree with you. Like maybe they don't need to just ask them for forgiveness, but I feel like it's a cry out. Like they don't know what to do, but they want to do something. So that's doing something like that is a start. Maybe we don't agree with it, but at least I know those people that are attempting to ask for or asking for forgiveness, I truly feel like unless it's a act, like they're on my
Mhm.
side. They
Mhm. Sure,
understand.
sure. Right, right,
If I
right.
tell them, that I see the sky blue, they're gonna, hey, actually, maybe he really does see the sky blue,
Mhm.
or if they can empathize with me. They can feel my pain.
Mhm.
They can, when I say, man, I got pulled over today and this cop was just on me and I didn't do anything wrong. Instead of typing back on, those keyboard guys, well, you
Mhm.
should have just listened to him. Maybe they'll say, hey, I'm really sorry that you had to
Mhm.
deal with that today. So I just think they don't know what to do because it is a hard thing. It's like, really, like being in your situation, right? I'm I'm a white guy. I have black friends. I'm just a good person. So I don't care if you're white, blue, green, yellow. And I know something's being done to my friends and I don't know what to do
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
stop it. I know if I see something like that and going on in front of me, I know to pull out my camera. I know to say, officer, you don't have to do that.
Mhm.
Please
Mhm.
back, you can say something like that. But
Mhm.
right now, when nothing's happening, what
Mhm.
do? You want to show somebody that you're caring for them, that you love them, that you understand them, that you,
Mhm.
so maybe that's their way
Mhm.
of doing it. But I agree, that because that's something that comes up. I don't own slaves. I never did. My grandparents never owned slaves. Stuff like that. So, but I I understand it. I don't get it, but I understand. I do
Gotcha.
I do
So maybe
understand.
to the degree to which maybe to the degree to which it seems to validate their pain, it's a good thing.
Right.
But the exact vocabulary, I'm asking forgiveness for my ancestors enslaving your ancestors. At least
Mhm.
for me, I don't find that
Right.
persuasive.
Yeah.
I think
And
there's a way to.
maybe I don't know. Maybe maybe the message got lost, or maybe they're not asking for. I don't know. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't, but maybe they're truly not asking for forgiveness for what their slaves or the slaves did or ancestors did. But maybe they're truly asking for forgiveness for not listening for all these years,
Right,
not
right, right,
not believing in what we were
right.
saying for all these years, not showing any type of empathy. Just there's another black guy got killed. He was
Right,
probably
right.
doing something he shouldn't have done, and not and finally realizing sometimes stuff gets done to us that is just done to us just because we look the way we look,
Mhm,
you
mhm,
know, and I don't know. And the media does play a big role in it. In
mhm.
all of this, the media does not help. The media gives us news, but it also fills our head with it fills our head with these prejudices. Because I can only imagine if there wasn't news around, if there wasn't Facebook around, like for all these years, and it was like an even playing field, that we wouldn't have maybe been looked at so
Mm.
badly. But at the same time, too, we're a human, we're a human race. We're as not speaking from a biblical sense, but we are born, bred to find some type of differences between us. Because I wish I could remember her name, but you remember what I'm talking about, when she did the brown eye and green eye experiment. I don't know if you ever saw that, but she's a lady.
Mm.
She's been on Oprah several times, and she took an entire class of they were all white kids, and she
Uh-oh.
divided them by the eye color, and and she treated one color eye color nice and the other eye color bad, and saw how they turned on each other. And it's kind of,
Mhm.
we're human, and but all that to say this is, like, I think they're asking for forgiveness for maybe from themselves for what they've done, what they've seen, maybe what their parents have told them, not believing. Like, there's something that they're asking for. I really don't think they're asking for, maybe that was a headline. I don't we weren't there. I didn't see a video of it.
Sure, sure,
And
sure, that's fine. Yeah, yeah.
and
No, I got you.
I if I had to ask, I would say that's what it was,
Yeah.
or that's what it could be, or that's why they're doing it, because they feel bad.
What are some man, I wanna wrap up, but I wanna ask this question because I wanted to ask this earlier, and I didn't want to interrupt you. What are some I think this would be good for people. What are some examples of things you've gone through based on your opinion that just because you're black, what are some things you've gone through, some kind of things you would characterize as racist? Maybe because of to whom you're married, maybe just individually. What are some things that maybe some of the people never experienced before? if you want to share them, you don't have to share them. But I'm really curious like, for example, not driving to certain cities. I think a lot of people would say, I didn't think about that. Besides, like you said, like the hood. I imagine a lot of black people don't want to go in the middle. Some places are just dangerous.
No,
But
it's
anyway,
yeah, without getting too much into it for people to know, but like it's, and you could say maybe these are racist or maybe they're not, but like walking into places and women looking at you and switching purses from one side to the
mm,
other. I remember I was just telling my father-in-law about this the other day. Like I was looking for a purse for Courtney. For one of our anniversaries. It was a Louis Vuitton purse that I wanted to buy for her. So I went into the store and I was looking, and I knew nothing of them because I've never bought a purse that expensive before. So I was like, let me go, do some recon and see how many checks I
mhm.
needed to put aside for this. So this lady was sitting in there, and the purse was on her right hand side. And as I came around the corner, she picked it up from one side and moved it to the other side. And then, so I saw that, but I didn't, because as a black guy, your head's always kind of on a swivel too.
Mhm.
So, and so then as I continued to walk around her, I came behind her and I came up on her left side, and she took the purse from the left side and she turned it back over to the right side, all within a matter of a
Mm.
minute. And she didn't go in it. So I looked back at her and I stopped for a second and I just shook my head and walked away because I didn't want to, I didn't want to be that typical angry black male that they're expecting me to be. So I just kind of shook my head and walked away. Um, there's, as you know, my wife is white, and I've not only dated her, I've dated pretty much every color in the spectrum. But there's been other people that I wasn't allowed to come in their house because of the color of my skin. I wasn't allowed. I was told I wasn't allowed to date them because of the color of their skin. And it wasn't just whites. It was, it's been an Asian. There was an Indian that that I was dating, and I couldn't because, or I was. They were told not to because of the color of my skin.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
being pulled over, for those random
Mhm.
reasons. No, knowing I'm not speeding because I'm on cruise control. All my stuff's good. I don't have dark tint. My car's registered. Everything's up, but I get pulled over for some random reason, wanting to search the cars. Never, David. I'm not typical. I'm not the typical guy, let alone typical black guy. Never. I don't drink. Never drink. Never done a drug in my life, but yet you have a reason to search me or look for things like that. So it's it's stuff like that. It's a million little things and a few really bad things.
Mhm.
So that's what a day in a life is like.
Daniel.
Yep, and then being like blatantly followed in stores. Just
Mm.
I'm shopping in a store, and then you see the clerk or a salesperson just
Hmm.
following you, literally following you every place you go, and to you want to scream, you want to yell, but have you ever? Let me ask you this: have you ever in your life felt like you needed to represent your entire race? And it's
Not my race, but my country.
your country. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah. When I go overseas, yeah, there are many times if they know I'm an American, yeah, it matters to me in that moment how they perceive. I'm not obsessive about it, but it
right.
does matter to me how they represent America. But not being white. I
And this
rarely ever in my entire life ever think about being white ever in my entire life. Yeah.
and for me, like, and this is just me, I can't speak for even the next black person, but I know there's many times in my life where I think about how I want to react and how I do react
Mm,
because I don't want there to be a bad image of
gotcha.
me or my people.
Gotcha.
So I sometimes I have to double think and think four times about how I act or how I look or how I think
Gotcha.
or how I do stuff because I don't want it to reflect poorly not only to myself and my family but my race.
What about people? No, and that's a for me that really is a very good analogy because I have a hint of that, or maybe it's the same. But when I said when I've been overseas several times, is the sense of whether it be Egypt or India, wherever it might be, is I can't think of a particular example, but there've been times where I think, what now matters to me. I want to make sure they understand that
We're
Americans
not all
behave.
bad. We're not all bad.
Yeah, right. Or we're respectful, or we really don't think yeah. We're not all Trump or whatever. Oh, yeah.
Right.
We're
Right.
not all Bush, but back then when I went,
And then
uh,
even then, if you think about it, when I go out of country, I have two of those hats that I have to do.
mm,
I have to not
mm,
only be a good I want to be a good American, but I want to be a good Black American because
mm,
I know
mm,
outside of the country, Black Americans can be looked at poorly because of how we're portrayed.
mm.
You know,
Well, only because of time. I'd go on for a long time, and maybe we can do it again. But I,
part two.
yeah, part two. Well, I'll just say a couple things to wrap up. To be very clear, I want to say the obvious from a Christian perspective that racism is both silly and sinful. I mean, it just is. Nothing in the teaching of Jesus supports vitiating any other person, quite frankly, for any reason. Not the person's behavior. Yes, we can judge people's behavior. Jesus does this repeatedly. The religious leadership. I mean, he does it all. He does it often in the Gospels. But what we're supposed. I mean, anyway. So this is just as I'm nonplussed. That is, I'm searching for like words because it seems to me so overwhelmingly obvious, and it's so overwhelmingly and obviously bad to do the things you've said you've experienced that I just can't believe it. Except I can believe it. I believe you. What I'm saying is I can't. When I grew up in Mississippi, in South Jackson, Mississippi, and where at least on two different occasions, the entire school was shut down early because there was rumors of gang wars that were going to happen. And I don't remember if they were just between two black gangs or a black and white gang. I can't remember, but I think they were racial. And we all went home. I mean, they sent the school buses home. They called parents. It's over. We heard at 3:00 or whatever. There's going to be a big blah, blah, blah. And I was raised. Now, thankfully, my family, I didn't experience much racism in my family. I didn't hear much every once in a while from one person in particular, but not much. But I knew other people were, and that includes both sides. I knew black people were very racist black people and very racist white people, whatever. Having said that, that feels like 100 years ago, man. It feels like 300 years ago. It doesn't feel like at all. So for me, the idea that when you're a kid and you're like, oh, I guess I can kind of see it. They are kind of like that or whatever when you're 7 years old or whatever, though that was never my view. Um, it's so bizarre to me that people and horrible to me that a person would even have such a view, that a person by default would look down upon someone and think that's the case. Anyway, I know it happens. I'm just saying that it's egregious to me. So anyway, with the Christian perspective, and we didn't talk about the rights and all this stuff. Maybe we can come back some other time and talk about that. But so just not in some white guilt way, but as your brother in Christ way, and just as a human being way, I'm genuinely. What's that? What?
I said you're asking for forgiveness. No,
please forgive my white race. But but genuinely, I'm just so sorry that you have ever experienced being looked down upon for the color of your skin, and that I understand enough of that it would cause pain. And this is, I'm about to give an analogy. This is not at all. Well, maybe I shouldn't. I won't, because I can give examples of when I have felt very much looked down upon because I'm pale or redheaded, this and this. I mean, whatever. But I've not experienced it all the time, every day. Look, I mean, so I don't want to compare that. That's my point. All my point is, it hurts. That's all my point. That and hurt is hurt, and I'm sorry. I mean it. I mean it. I just mean it. So I'm very, very sorry. I'm sorry that you had experienced that. I'm especially disappointed when Christians behave that way. People who claim the name of Jesus, who then and I've heard that before. I know people who are dear to me who claim the name of Jesus to be a disciple, who then also in the same, later on in the breath, will be watching the news or say some kind of snide comment. And that's very disheartening. And so in my life, in my wife's life, we speak up against that every single time we're in family or friends. We say, that's not I mean, we do our best. And it's still just shocking when it comes out of their mouth, but it's especially shocking when they're a Christian. Like, come on now, I'd rather you just say I'm not a Christian and then you're just a pagan. At least pagans are just whatever. But anyway, I'm sorry, man. Well, first I want to say that because I'm just, and on my wild guilt. No, but I'm serious. I'm genuinely sorry for that. Secondly, I'm so appreciative that you did this, my brother. I'm so appreciative. I appreciate your input. I appreciate your stories. I appreciate your narrative. It has helped me. I love this is exactly what I hope, which is great dialogue, and for me to also learn more what it's like to be you in your world. And I'm serious, that has been very enlightening to me and encouraging in a way, I guess, in a sense that it helps me understand from your perspective more. I mean it. So appreciate it, brother. I very much appreciate it. And I hope, did she like that purse, by the way?
Yeah, she loved it.
You got
She
that
loved
purse?
it. Yeah, she loved it. She loved it.
So I had
So
to
let
sell
me,
my truck.
to close to close off with it is like I want because you asked a question. I don't know if I necessarily answered it, but I, like I said, I can't speak for everybody, but for me, if I can, if I can, a couple things. If you can understand that there's white privilege, and then you can, if brought up in a conversation or if talking to somebody, you can acknowledge it, and you don't have to apologize for it, but just acknowledge it. Don't say it doesn't exist, because that feels like a slap in the face, you know. And
Hmm.
what I think what we want people is we just want to be heard, or I just want to be heard. I can't speak for everybody. Just want to be
Hmm.
heard. So if we tell you something's going on, don't just poo poo it away and say,
Hmm.
"Oh no, you
Hmm.
should have listened to the cops," or
Hmm.
they were doing something wrong, or and I know you weren't doing this, but bring up why should it matter if white cops are killing black cops because black people are killing black people
Hmm.
all the time. We're not talking about that. We're talking about this. Let's be heard about this. So it's just to be heard, to be empathized with, and just to be validated that when we're telling you something that you believe us that what we're telling you, not this believe every single thing that we hear, but it's just like
Right, right,
understand that this is real. We're not just making it up, and this has been happening for years and years and years. So
right.
uh,
Right.
Martin Luther King,
Uh-oh.
yeah, he had this quote that he had, right, and that I got today. It says, "I have almost reached a regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great um, stumbling block in his strides towards freedom is not the white citizen counselors or the Ku Klux Klan, but the white moderates who in more is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefer a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice." Basically saying, the regular person, they need to stand up and say something. Don't just
Hmm.
don't just don't just not say anything. And I think that message is getting out there a little bit because more
Hmm.
people that are white they're starting to speak out, and I think that will help change laws, help change procedures and policies when it comes to the police behavior and
Hmm.
stuff like that. So I just think if it's basically the average American, if that person comes out of the woodworks and starts talking and starts expressing concern for what's going on with the way the police are handling anybody, and
Hmm.
then I know right now it's getting funneled to black people, but I don't want Tom, Dick, or Harry,
Hmm.
Juan, Ton Lee, Muhammad. I don't want this to happen to anybody, or Bill. I don't want it to happen to anybody. Like nobody should. Like there should be a certain set of laws that apply to everybody. And I understand. I truly, truly understand. Policing is hard. Policing is hard. I I I haven't lived it, but I understand it through
Hmm.
stories, and I can only gather what I was told.
Hmm.
So, and I know they have to look around each corner. I know they have to worry about stuff like that. But when you have somebody in handcuffs in custody, they you can only run so fast with your
Right,
arms behind
right,
your back.
right,
You
right.
can't, and you got tasers. You have to use the right forces and when you have to. So I think that's really kind of what wants to come out this. And last but not least, like I've been blessed that I did. Part of the reason why I did choose Courtney, and she's like, "Oh, it's part of that." But part of the reason why I did choose Courtney is because of her family, right?
Hmm.
If they're, although we don't agree on everything, me and her in-laws and her brothers, because I think they lean more one side and I may lean towards the other. So we don't agree on everything. But you know what? At the end of the day, they're good people.
Hmm.
They're good people. They have good hearts. They may have had some prejudice. I don't know this, but I'm saying they may have had some prejudice when they first met me, but they opened up their home, they opened
Hmm.
up their heart, and they accepted me, and they
Hmm.
wanted to get to know who Eddie truly was. So when they found out who I was and found out that I'm a pretty darn fantastic guy that they let me in their lives, and they let me marry their daughter, and they gave their blessings, and I will tell you, they treat me, this black guy from the Caribbean, they treat me just as good as they treat their two sons and their daughter. I call them mom and dad. They and we had, like I said, we don't always agree, but they treat me like a human being from day one, and they're good people. So if we had more people like them, just look at people for who they are on the inside and get to know them, then we'd be in a better place right now. So I if they listen to this, I want them to know that I am thankful and I love them and I appreciate them, because they are great people. And then my wife, without saying it, she's just an amazing woman. I was the first black guy she ever dated, and we ended up getting married. So it's
how about that?
Yeah, there's normally a pattern of these things. Nope,
there's a pattern.
I was the first, and because her parents never told her, don't date somebody because of what they look like. Date them because of how they treat you or the morals that they have. And that's why I was able to date and marry their daughter, because there were no stipulations put on them at a young age that dark is bad and light is good. They were just saying people are people. So,
amen. Well, amen. I this is not to trump your MLK Jr. quote, but I was going to end on this, and just I think it's a good ending too. And I appreciate what you're saying, and I appreciate that her family's been so fantastic. And I remember them a little bit from doing the wedding, and it was great to see them call mom and dad and so forth. And that's a phenomenal example of love and acceptance, and that's wonderful. I think of many quotes, of course, from Jesus. Here's one from the Apostle Paul, and we'll finish up with this in Romans chapter 12. In Romans chapter 12, we'll start in verse 14. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with each other. Do not be haughty, but associate with the lowly. Do not be conceited. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Consider what is good before all people. If possible, so far as it depends upon you, live peaceably with all people. Do not avenge yourselves, dear friends, but give place to God's wrath, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. Rather, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him drink. For in doing this, you will be heaping burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Thank you, brother. God bless you, brother. I hope to do this again. Please tell her we say hello.
I look forward to it. Send me it whenever we have it on.
I sure will.
So I can post it.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for your time.
Love you, David.
Love you too, brother. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Well, the conversation isn't finished. You can always reach out to me on social media. Are you on Facebook? I am too. @Glimpse of the Kingdom. Glimpse of the Kingdom on Facebook. Be sure to like it, and you can see updates there. Also, if you're on Twitter, check me out at Dr. D. Pendergrass, Dr. D. Pendergrass, or @Glimpse the King, Glimpse the King. And I try my best to respond to comments and questions on there as quickly as I can. If you want more, there are many more resources on the podcast and my blog. Go to my website, davidpendergrass.com, and you can see a full list of the podcast, and my blog is available for free. Are you active in a church right now? I'd be happy to come out to your church and do all kinds of classes and workshops there. Check out davidpendergrass.com, davidpendergrass.com for more information. And may God in His great grace give you even just a glimpse of His kingdom this week. See you next time.